Hi everybody. We are meant to communicate another time to finish our chapter Morphology, and we are going to dwell on the second part after having explained some notions about the word. You still remember that we dealt with the notion of the word, to explain what we are supposed to know about it. For instance, we talked about the word cat. We said that the word cat is composed of different sounds. So this is the form of the word cat here. It has got k, a, and t. This form, this word, refers to or denotes this animal, cat. This cat is the meaning of this word here. Another piece of information that we are supposed to include in our mind, in our linguistic intuition about the word cat, is that it is a noun, and this is its syntactic category. So these are different pieces of information that we are supposed to bear or to hold in our mind here. Now, we can talk about the notion of a word from a different angle, from a morphological point of view. And in here we need to introduce other notions together with words. So we have to talk about morphemes. First of all, let us just try to define the notion of a morpheme. It is a minimal linguistic sign. A morpheme is a minimal linguistic sign. By the word minimal, we mean that it's the smallest unit that cannot be broken up. It cannot be divided any further. So we cannot divide it into, let's say, smaller units because it's the smallest. And that's why we have got this definition here. Morphemes are the atoms of meaning. Look at the word atom. We always think that the atom is the smallest entity that cannot be broken up or can be divided further. So this applies also to morphemes. Now there is another bit that we can add to the definition of morpheme. It's a sound meaning pair. Look, sound meaning pair, which means that any morpheme should have a form, the sounds that compose it, and these sounds or the form of it denote or refer to a certain meaning. So this is what is meant by a pair. There should be some kind of coexistence between the sound and meaning. So this sound meaning pair cannot be broken up into smaller segments that have meaning. This is what we have just said, because we consider the morpheme as the atom. It cannot be divided further. Now, both the sound and the meaning are crucial to the identity of a morpheme. So these are two important criteria that can help us identify the morphemes of any language. So we have to take into consideration the form of the morpheme and the meaning of it. Let's have a look at another distinction that we need to draw within the framework of morphology. So a morpheme should be made different from the notion of the syllable. Let's have a look at these examples to explain this. In the word swimmers, here this is a word. It can be divided, it can be broken up. It can be divided into some elements, such as swim plus that is er, and this z, one of the realizations of the plural s. So how many units do we have in the word swimmers? We have one, swim, one unit. We have got this er, and we have got this s here. So three different units in the same word. Now, how many syllables do we have here? We have got swimmer. So in fact, we have got two syllables. This is the case of a bisyllabic word, which means it contains two syllables. But how many morphemes? Remember that the morpheme is the minimal unit, which has got a meaning. And this is what we have got in here. We have got one unit, which is the verb to swim. We know its meaning. And we have got er. We also know its meaning. It means here the agent, okay, or the doer of the action of swimming. And we have got this s here, this z, which indicates plurality. So both er and z have got what we call a grammatical meaning. But this one is what we call the content word. Now, my point here through this example is to show that the number of syllables does not correspond to the number of morphemes. This is the case of a polymorphemic word. By poly, it means it contains more than two, many morphemes. But how many syllables? It includes here one, two. So it's bisyllabic word. Now, the word camera. Look at the number of syllables. It contains one, camera. So three syllables. So it's polysyllabic. But how many morphemes here? Can we divide this word further into different morphemes? Of course not. It constitutes only one unit, one morpheme. So it's monomorphemic word. By monomorphemic, it means it contains one morpheme. But it contains how many syllables? One, two, three. So it's a polysyllabic word. So look, polysyllabic, monomorphemic. Same thing in here. So here we have got how many syllables? Jersey. It's one, two. Bisyllabic, but monomorphemic. Same thing in camera here. But what shall we draw as a conclusion out of these three examples? Is that the number of syllables does not necessarily correspond to the number of morphemes in words. Okay? Sometimes we have got some words where we have got this identity between the number of morphemes and the number of syllables. For example, the word not, N-O-T, not. We know that it contains one syllable. At the same time, it contains one morpheme. So it's monomorphemic, monosyllabic word. But in most cases, it does not work in this way. We have got the number of syllables which is made different from the number of morphemes. Now let's talk about other notions in morphology here. Let's talk about, in particular, similarities and differences between word and morpheme. Morphemes can't be broken up into smaller elements that have meaning themselves. This is what we explained before, because they are the atoms, the smallest units. Now, words are not necessarily unrealizable. Some words are monomorphemic, but others are complex and consist of more than one morpheme. What does this mean? It's possible to analyze words in terms of their components, those smaller units that compose them. So morphemes cannot be broken further, but words can be divided further into smaller units. So in fact this can help us understand this distinction between morphemes and words. When we talk about morphemes, we can draw a distinction between two major kinds or classes of morphemes. So the first one is the class that we call free morphemes. These morphemes can stand alone. They can occur in isolation, or they can stand all by themselves. Here, let's have a look at this example: more versus er. We know that the two units, the two bits, have got the same meaning. For example, when we want to make a comparison between two things, two people, two objects in general, we can make this comparison by means of more or er, depending on the adjective here. Now, if we want to say that somebody is better as far as intelligence is concerned, here we have to make use of the adjective intelligent. Now we can say A is more intelligent than B. So here we have got to make use of more. But in other cases we don't use more, but we use er. For example, smart. If we say A is, here is better in smartness, if you like, we can say is smarter. A is smarter than B. So notice more and er, both of them indicate, have got the same meaning. Okay, but more can be used alone. It can stand all by itself. But er, it's impossible for it to be used alone. Therefore, it should always be attached to other words. Now, those bits or units which should be attached to other words, or what we call roots, they are called bound morphemes. So this is our first distinction. It should be drawn between free morphemes and bound morphemes. More is a free morpheme. Er is a bound morpheme. And let us please, before this, try to talk about a difference between two major categories of words. We can talk about lexical content words as opposed to grammatical function words. What do you mean by content words? It means those words which carry the main message, the main meaning of the sentence where they are used. Here we are talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives. They form open classes. What is meant by an open class? An open class, it means a group of words, a grammatical class, whose members cannot be counted. We have got an endless number of members belonging to that class. For example, how many nouns do we have in English? Of course, we cannot count them all. How many verbs? How many adjectives? So we have got an endless number of adjectives, verbs, nouns. So here, these classes are open. Now, as far as the other category, of words is concerned, we can talk about, let's say, examples of prepositions, conjunctions, determiners, articles, demonstrative pronouns. Here it's possible to restrict the number of the members belonging to each class. We know the prepositions in English, We know the conjunctions, we know determiners. So these are closed classes. They are not open because it's possible to limit the number of the words included in these categories here. But these words which belong to the closed classes, they have got less specific meaning. So look here, we have got lexical content words. We call them content words because, as I said, they express the main message, the main meaning of the whole sentence, for example. But these ones have got less specific meaning. Let me give you just a very simple sentence through which we can make this difference clear. For example, I went to the cinema. How many words do we have in here? I went to the cinema. 5 words. Among these 5 words, what words are content words and what words are, if you like, function or grammatical words? In a very simple way, we can say that to the preposition and the definite article, they are grammatical or function words, because if we omit them, they are not going to affect the meaning of the sentence where they are used. For example, I went cinema. Still we can guess the meaning of the whole sentence. So the words to, the, they are there just because they are needed, by the structure of the sentence. They are showing to us the syntactic relationship between the words there, between go and cinema. But if we omit one of the content words, the meaning of the sentence will not be complete. For example, if we omit cinema, I went to the, where, here we have got different possibilities. But if I say I went cinema, we can guess that we have got the preposition to and the determiner, which are omitted there. So this is the main difference between content words and function or grammatical words. Now, you still remember we talked about free morphemes, and we said that free morphemes can be used alone as opposed to bound morphemes. And here we're going to have a look at examples of bound morphemes. First, we can talk about affixes. Affixes, it means that general category which includes smaller subsets or smaller categories included in it. By an affix, we can refer to a prefix, an infix, suffix, and other things. Now, all these units should be attached to the roots, to other root morphemes. Okay, the affixes must be attached to other root morphemes. For example, we talked about ER. So we can say writer, swimmer. This ER cannot be used alone, but it should be if you like, at the end of verbs to indicate the agent, the doer of the action. So affixes must be attached to other root morphemes. Okay, of course they have a distinct meaning. As we said, it's not lexical meaning, but they have got what we call grammatical meaning. Now, included in the category of bound morphemes, we can also talk about Karan morphemes, like huckle in the word huckleberry, ham in hamburger, goose in gooseberry, straw in strawberry, cran in cranberry. Each of them has got, shows its meaning only when it is found in connection to other bits, other units, other words. Okay, so these are, they constitute a special category of bound morphemes. Now let's have a summary of the types of morphemes we introduced up to now. We can talk about free morphemes, and in here we can include lexical, grammatical morphemes. We can talk about bound morphemes. We can talk about affixes, and we can talk about Karan Morphemes. Now let's talk about the process of affixation and other morphological processes. Affixation and other morphological processes. You remember we talked about affixes. We said that affix is the general category. It includes prefix, infix, suffix, and other kinds. Now here we can talk about types of affixes classified by where they attach to a root. If they are used at the beginning of the word or the root, they are called prefixes. For example, in inedible, in ineligible, in intolerant. This in here used at the beginning of these roots, okay, is called a prefix. First of all, it is an affix, and in a particular, it is a prefix. Now, the opposite of this is something which is attached at the end. It's able. This is an example here. We can talk about drinkable, likable, doable. These units like able, which are attached at the end of the roots, they are called suffixes. Now we can also talk about other kinds of affixes like circumfixes and infixes. We are going to explain them later on. So circumfix, this is an example from a language we don't know. Someone. Okay, so look at this example taken from this language. We have finau. This means to quarrel. This is the gloss. That is the English English translation here. It means to quarrel. Now if we want to say to obtain the reciprocal form of to quarrel, we can add at the beginning fe and at the end ai. Okay, so here we're going to express this meaning of reciprocal by adding something at the beginning and something at the end. This is what is meant by a circumfix. Normally in English it's not, it's not possible to find it. So look at the example here. Fe fi na finawa ari. It means to quarrel with each other. So we obtain this the grammatical notion of the reciprocal by splitting the morpheme into two bits. The first bit is attached at the beginning and the second bit is attached at the end. So but both of them go together. They form one affix, which it is called a circumfix. Both of them mean or suggest the grammatical notion of reciprocal here. Now here we have got another example that's going to represent the infix. This is taken from this language Bontoc from the Philippines. So look here at these words. Ficus means strong, kilad red, fusul enemy, pussy poor. Now to say to be strong, to be red, to be enemy, to be poor, we have to add But where are we going to put it? Where is the place of to express to be strong, to be red, to be enemy, to be poor? Look, fumikas, to be strong. So we're going to insert this bit, this unit, this morpheme, which means to be, inside the word. It's going to apply to the other words. Kumilad, to be red. Fumusul, to be an enemy. Pumusi, to be poor. So just remember the roots. Let's go back. This is the root, kilad. Fusu, pusi. We insert to be, to say to be strong. Now kilad, red. How can we express to be red? This is what we have got in here. To be red, kumilad. To be an enemy, fumusul, to be poor, okay, fumusi here. So this is an example showing to us infix, which is a type of affix. Now, what about these words taken from English? Darkens, lightens, softens, hardens. Can we consider en as an infix in here? Remember what we said about an infix. An infix should be inserted inside the word, not at the end. What do we have here in darkens? We have the root dark plus en, which means the verb. It makes of it a verb, to darken. And this s is not part of the root. Okay? He darkens or it darkens. Okay? So this s here has got a grammatical meaning. It shows the present tense and the third person singular. Darkens. Lightens. Now this en cannot be considered an infix once again in here, because it's not inserted inside the word, it's at the end. It just happens that we add another morpheme after it, this s in here. Okay, so infix should be inserted inside the word, not at the end. Now, of the affixes, English has prefixes, suffixes. It seems that circumfixes and infixes are lacking here in English. And that's all. Later on we're going to have another part, a third part, explaining further notions in morphology. Thank you, and I hope we're going to have another occasion to interact with each other and to explain and see other very important notions in morphology.